The purpose of Safety Links is to provide the public with general safety-related information covering the home, businesses, and community with emphasis upon senior citizen-related issues, drawing upon existing programs currently being offered by federal, state, and local agencies. A broad-based, multifaceted array of subjects will be covered. In addition, contact information will be offered to those seeking direct help or support. And now, on with today's topic.
Hello, I'm Tom Hayes, Director of Customer and Community Relations for New Jersey Natural Gas Company, and your host today for SCAN Safety Links. We've been running a special series on Superstorm Sandy, relief and recovery. And today I'm happy to mention that I have Stephen McMahon, who is the Director of the United Way's ReBuild New Jersey program, and he's going to be talking to us about some of the wonderful things they're doing through the ReBuild New Jersey program. So welcome, Steve. Appreciate you being here.
Glad to be here.
It's certainly a lot of work that has to be done out there, and I know you've been working really hard with your group and organizations, really trying to get out there, really where the rubber meets the road, right? Trying to help folks get back in their homes. So again, I want to thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
I appreciate all the hard work that you've been doing.
Thanks.
So I guess I have a couple of questions here for you. First, I guess you could just tell us a little bit about what is ReBuild New Jersey?
So ReBuild New Jersey is this program of several United Ways have come together to create an opportunity for people to volunteer to go in and help rebuild the homes of people who were impacted by Sandy. And our program is designed for volunteers who aren't carpenters and aren't electricians and aren't plumbers. It's folks like you and I who want to help out and want to help our neighbors, but need some guidance and some help to be able to do that. And that's what ReBuild New Jersey is. That's
great, and I can vouch for that because I was on one of the rebuilds, and that's certainly not my.
You did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
We're really glad to have you.
The house didn't collapse, right?
No, it's all good.
It's all good. I know you guys do great work.
Thank you.
If I wasn't doing good work, you guys would have straightened me out. I know that. I know that. It's very thorough, and really your team was wonderful.
Thanks.
And what's great about it is that not only are you feeling good about doing something good for somebody out there, fellow humanity, but you're working with such wonderful people, and the folks that volunteer are always upbeat and friendly, and it's actually a very enjoyable time. So, it's kind of such a win-win all the way around.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
And certainly you have a wonderful personality, and it comes through with your staff and the folks that you bring along, that it really seems like it's a good group to work with.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so much of it really is that when, we get to see the best side of humanity. When disaster strikes, when people are impacted, so many of us want to help out and don't know how to help. And what happens in our program is that people come who do want to help, and we create the opportunity for them to do so. And you saw it when you volunteered. I mean, people who are really passionate about making a difference, but don't necessarily know how. And they don't need to know how. That's our job.
Right.
So we make that opportunity exist and really transform the excitement and the dedication of people into meaningful service for people whose homes were destroyed by Sandy.
Right. And it's certainly a great program that the United Way has brought into the area and brought you into the area. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came to be?
Yeah, so I've been working with United Ways across the country for several years now, and for the majority of the last decade, I've done a ton of work down in Mississippi and Louisiana after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, and then over to Texas after Ike. And in doing that, I've been able to see United Ways time and time again show up and try to help communities rebuild. And they've been very involved in the long-term process, the long-term recovery process, much more so than the immediate relief. But that part is so complex and so important and critical. And unfortunately, it takes so long. So as a result of having done that down on the Gulf Coast a lot, I was able to see lots of different program models that worked. And one is our program is modeled after is bringing volunteers together who want to do the actual construction skills and providing them with the tools and the resources and the supervision that transforms their energy into meaningful service.
Right, that's great. And I'm fortunate I work for a New Jersey Natural Gas Company, and in my position I'm able to be out and involved in the community. So I do serve on the boards for both Monmouth and Ocean County United Ways, and on both the long-term recovery groups for both counties. And I do get to see it firsthand. And the point you made about it being kind of complicated and taking a long time, it is very frustrating from our standpoint, the folks behind the scenes are trying to get all this assistance and aid out there and to try to be able to really help these families that have been really suffering from this. And it's difficult, but we've learned our lessons from Katrina that if you bring the money in too quick, and if there really aren't you know, the bells and whistles that need to be in place to kind of keep things under control, a lot of that money gets wasted or you know, maybe not spent in quite the right way. In some cases, obviously ripped off and stolen and all that kind of stuff. So it is a cumbersome process, but it really does need to be in place. Hopefully, you know, at some point we'll get this to kind of even out where it's not so loose, but yet not so strict, that we can actually get really more dollars to the street and more efforts to the street sooner.
Well, I think there's so many millions of dollars available, and when we see these, you know, numbers in the media, it sounds like there's so much. But when you divide that by 346,000 houses just in New Jersey, it gets to be very difficult. And how do you make those determinations? And I think that all of us are really trying to figure out, how do we stretch those limited dollars to help as many families as possible? And for us, part of what's the beauty of our program is, you know, we cut out a huge amount of the cost for homeowners because our labor is all volunteer. So volunteers come in, but we don't just throw a lot of money into a house without making sure that we've tapped every other resource, because the pool of dollars that we have, we could be out of business in a month. Fixing up, you know, dozens of homes and then be out of cash. So it's that balancing act of really, you know, bringing in those resources and stretching them and maximizing our impact.
And I always said that the beauty of the United Way is that they can really be a great collaborator and doing just that, bringing in other resources and other partners, because especially being involved in the community like I am on a regular basis, you realize there are so many organizations out there, but not everyone knows what everyone else is doing at any given time. But the fact that you kind of know that a lot of that exists helps to be able to say you can reach out to these groups that may have some expertise, may even have some funding that can go to a portion of the project. For example, somebody might be able to fund appliances. You know, they can't do, you know, construction equipment or you know, lumber or anything, but they might be able to do that for us. And any little piece of the puzzle that can be fit in, it really makes everybody's dollars go a long way and gets the most out of the resources that are given to us.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing work right now with a faith-based group that's got a group here for a whole year. They're from out of state, and they have electricians and plumbers on staff. And that's not work that we're able to do. But at the same time, there's such a huge need for electricians and plumbers that we don't want them going into houses and doing gutting of houses and insulation and drywall. I mean, our volunteers can do that. And people who don't know how to do that, our site leaders can show them how to do that. So we would much rather have those folks who can do plumbing, because it's such a huge need. And you know, that's one of the things that's holding things up in some communities, is that, you know, you get to a certain place and you need to have the electrical done. Well, that can only be done by a licensed electrician. And I can want to help all till the cows come home about electricity, but I don't know squat, and our site leaders don't. We really need to deploy those resources where they're most useful.
That's true. And that's a very good point. And you know, you certainly want to get in there and do these homes right. So you can't rush certain things. It's just got to be done right. You've got to have the electrical wiring done right. You have to have the plumbing done right. Nobody wants to fix up a house and have a plumbing leak on the second floor that, you know, floods the house again all over, you know. So, but that's good. And again, patience is a virtue, but it's tough for families that are kind of waiting. It's, you know, taking forever, it feels, you know, and you know, they have to go through the process, the insurance, the FEMA dollars, all the different funding that's available out there. They got to really kind of make sure they can get everything they can before they get to the point where we can actually go in there and start reworking, and getting the work done. So,
well, October 29th changed things for everyone. It changed it for homeowners who were impacted. It changed it for the nonprofit community. I mean, it changed it for the state government. I mean, never in the history of New Jersey was there this mobilization of resources in the same way that there was after Superstorm Sandy. And that requires a lot of building up of resources and expertise. So, you know, one of the beauties of our program is, you know, you saw it when you came. I don't know how much experience you had in putting in insulation and drywall, but it didn't matter. Because what we do is we get these site leaders in and we train them to transform folks like us into people who can hang drywall, people who can frame a wall. And one of the things we're really excited about is we've just created an AmeriCorps program where we are right now recruiting volunteers to come in as site leaders. And those volunteers will either work half-time or full-time with us, and they'll receive a stipend. So that's money that's come to us from the state that allows us to train site leaders and give them a small stipend, a living allowance, so that folks who really want to do this, not just on the one-off or once a month, but really want to do it either full-time or half-time, can do that. And then at the end of their term of service, they're eligible for up to $5,550 in educational awards.
That's great.
Yeah, and for your audience, I mean, what's really great is that they can use it for their own education to either pay to go back to college or pay off loans, or they can gift it to their grandchildren.
Wow.
So it's a really great partnership, and again, us leveraging those resources to be able to make the biggest impact.
Right. Now, for our viewers out there, how can they help?
Well, I mean, again, there are thousands of homes that still need help, and we're in several of them every single week. So people can contact us at United Way, and we're really excited to bring more and more folks on. But if people wanted to be one of those site leaders, all they need to do is call our office or email us, and we'll reach out to them and bring them in to this program that I just described. So they'll come in. They don't have to have training in construction skills. If they do, that's great. What's really been amazing is, people come every time we have a group come in that says that they're unskilled. There are always people who come in who are like, oh yeah, I'm not that skilled, but I've done drywall. And then you have them start doing it, and they've clearly done it. They know what they're doing.
Right.
So it's exciting.
You're pleasantly surprised.
Yes. But then they have people like me who come in who, I'm a social worker, I'm not a construction guy. So, people like me can come in and, I've learned so many things. I know how to do, how to gut a house now. I know how to replace subflooring. I mean, there are so many of these new skills that I've learned, but that's because our training program is put in place to transform people like you and I into real agents of change in these houses. Yeah.
Now, like a ReBuild New Jersey leader, is that a little different, or is that's somebody who does a little bit more?
Yeah. So a ReBuild leader is an AmeriCorps member who we recruit and then we train, who really is knows enough about each of the areas that they're leading in to lead a group. So, so we have a young person named Jason who came to us this summer who had never done construction. And after 3 weeks of training, Jason was in gutting houses because he knew how to protect his crew. He knew what tools needed to be used and when, and he could answer questions. And he also knew the limits of what he could and couldn't do. So if in starting to do gutting of a house, he found a problem that he didn't know about. We pull up subflooring and there's a joist that's broken. He can't replace a joist. I mean, and he knows enough to know to call the construction supervisor. So that's what these site leaders do. More importantly, they're really they're coaches for the volunteers who they lead each day.
Right.
So they're the folks. I mean, again, we see it all the time. These people come, they're really energetic, and they want to make a difference. But then, as you start to do it, I mean, these are people's houses. These are people's homes. It gets really scary when you start to think about, like, I want to do this right, and we want people to do that right. So our site leaders are trained in the mechanics of fixing a house, but they're also trained in, the coaching of volunteers and doing sort of the gentle correction, like, hey, Steve, it's really helpful if you cut off that extra 1/4 inch, and here's why, as opposed to just sort of letting it go. Because everyone whose house we go in deserves to have serve the highest quality repair job done, and we're able to deliver that because we train our site leaders to do that.
No, that's good. That's great. And again, I commend them because they do have patience, and they're pleasant about it. That they do understand, and whatever training you give them, it works because everybody has a good time. Everybody feels like they've accomplished something. A lot gets done, and it's just a nice opportunity. I certainly encourage anybody out there to really take advantage of this because it's great. It's very fulfilling, and a lot of us, you feel like you want to help some way. You want to do something good for others, and it's a great opportunity to do that. And like you said, you don't really have to have any experience. You could just be bringing materials back and forth to people. You could you could learn some skills. And like I said, hanging drywall is not that complicated. Now spackling's a little different. That's a little more complicated. But getting the big sheets of sheetrock up on the wall, it's just a matter of a little bit of measurement and a little bit of cutting, and boom, it's in. So.
Well, so many times what we're doing is we're going into families and working with families who their need exceeds their resources. So we just cut away at that. So,
Gotcha.
We've done these projects where we've gone and done demolition, where they've had a wrecker come in and they've taken out the big stuff, and we'll spend a day or two clearing the lot. And it's debris pickup, but we save them thousands of dollars.
Right. Now, just quick before we end here, is there a phone number that folks can call, or?
Yeah, if people go to the United Way of Monmouth County website or call the Volunteer Center there,
great.
We're happy to reach out to them.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. We're going to have to break for a commercial at this point. But again, Stephen McMahon, the director of the United Way's New Jersey ReBuild program. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Make your home more energy efficient with the New Jersey Natural Gas Save Green project. Take advantage of rebates and incentives up to $15,000. Replace your inefficient HVAC system and upgrade to high-efficiency equipment. Reduce air and duct leaks and install proper insulation. Call Save Green at 877-455-NJNG or visit SaveGreenProject.com and learn how you may qualify for up to $15,000 in rebates and incentives. Call 877-455-NJNG.
Hello again. I'm Tom Hayes, Director of Customer and Community Relations for New Jersey Natural Gas Company, and I'm here today at SCAN hosting a Safety Links program where we're really focused on Hurricane and Superstorm Sandy disaster recovery. We're fortunate at this point to have Trevor Newman, who is the Disaster Recovery Ombudsman for the Township of Toms River, with us, and is going to talk to us about some of the programs that he's involved with. And Trevor, we're really grateful to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
That's great. I know you do great work in the Township of Toms River. First of all, I guess, can you give us an idea of what the Township of Toms River really includes?
Well, from the storm disaster area, Ortley Beach, which everybody has seen all over the television, the North Beaches, which are not as well publicized, but part of the township. And then, of course, we had tremendous damage on the Bayside beaches, on the Bayside homes, which is often overlooked. You know, everybody sees the grandiose pictures of the houses washed away, but you come to the Bayside and the houses, although they're badly damaged, they're damaged on the way away from the street where you can't see it. And it just doesn't show up that often.
Right, it's incredible when you see, like, there's all the lagoons, all the Bayside residents, I mean, and even far-reaching into areas that aren't right on the water, it's still, if they're low-lying, they really got hit dramatically.
Well, as an example, I was in the Haynes Cove section, which is on the river rather than on the bay, and it's way up the river. It's well up towards town, and they've demolished already 6 homes on that one street. They faced the river, and they took a tremendous amount of damage. That area is quite low, and the wind and waves just destroyed it. And you know, you don't see that. That doesn't show up in the newscasts. You see Ortley Beach over and over again. You see Seaside. But you don't see all that underlying damage.
Right.
And it's tremendous damage, and it's all along the waterfront.
Right.
It doesn't matter where it is.
As you said, it's not as dramatic to look at, but in terms of the magnitude, it's far greater than some of the oceanfront homes that were hit. And again, they were, like you said, wiped off their foundations and destroyed, but many of these neighborhoods were just submerged.
Well, this street that I'm speaking about, Haynes Cove, is an expensive neighborhood, and there's only a few homes down there that are occupied even today. The demolition has been completed on a number of homes. There's a couple more that I think will probably be demolished. There are several that are being raised, which is a major undertaking on an existing home, and we're going to see so much of that kind of repair work. It's pretty incredible.
Wow. Now, you have an interesting title, Ombudsman. Can you tell our audience what an ombudsman is and what an ombudsman does?
The first question I get when somebody calls me is, what exactly does an ombudsman do? And there's 100 different explanations, but the bottom line is I coordinate and create a liaison with all of the departments in the township, even up to and including the governor's office for state-involved programs. To resolve problems that residents bring to me that they haven't been able to resolve themselves.
Right.
Now, in some cases, we've got any number of residents that are just paralyzed with fear of what to do next. Where am I going? What am I doing? How am I going to do it? And in the Ortley Beach and North Beach sections, fully 70% of our home owners are secondary homeowners.
Right.
And there was very, very limited funding available to them from any source.
Right.
So they're pretty, if they didn't have insurance, they're pretty much on their own.
Yeah.
There is no backup for them. And helping them to untangle where they stand and where they need to go. FEMA has put in a whole series of flood elevation requirements and the elevation that the houses need to be built to, or in the case of an existing home, elevated to. And the compliance is a very expensive proposition.
Right.
I spoke with a woman last night who and I felt so bad. She's having some mental issues, and she has a hard time remembering. She's cognizant, she knows what she's doing, but tomorrow she may not remember what she was doing today. And she's got tremendous requirements that are placed on her by insurance programs, and even township permitting is very, very complicated.
Right.
And she came in to see me and she said, "What can you do for me?" And I said, "I can't do it for you, but I can guide you in how to do it." And I made a number of suggestions and wrote her out a page of notes to follow up with some volunteer organizations. And one thing I suggested to her, if you're having this kind of a problem, ask, instead of somebody to come and fix your house, somebody to sit with you that will transcribe what you tell them. Rather than you do it and do it over and over again,
Right.
let somebody help you. But try to get them to provide a volunteer that will stay with you through the process,
Right.
rather than change volunteers every week.
Right.
And she was very thankful, and I'm going to follow up with her next week and see
Great.
how she's doing.
That's great.
So the Ombudsman is kind of a procedural troubleshooter, for lack of a better term. If you have a problem with building permits, I seek out the building official and find out what the problem is, if it's your problem or their problem, and try to get that problem rectified and move on.
That's great.
If it's a grant program, the grant programs are a little bit more complicated to get assistance, because they are so big and they are so far-flung. Getting help there is a little bit more complicated.
Right.
Within the township, I can just reach out and touch. I've got tremendous cooperation from all of the departments, so I'm able to reach out and resolve those issues relatively quickly.
That's great. There are so many complicated issues that come with the rebuild and all the aftermath of the superstorm. So it is great for folks to have somebody, in their corner that can help them out. That somebody can hear them out, and then, as you say, help them straighten out their issues. And every town has the permitting process and all these different issues and regulations that they have to go through. And it's difficult for the average person that probably doesn't deal with it ever until something like this comes along. It's not something we do every day. And yet, a lot of times the construction officials, they do it every day, and they can get a little frustrated, or they're assuming people may know certain things that they just don't know. So it's great to have a person, a mediator like yourself, in there to really see both sides. You're not there to argue one way or another. You're just trying to help get both sides together to get to the bottom line and get the problem solved, which is great.
Tom, if I can give you an example, the building department this year has issued in excess of 9,000 permits. Now, that's not all new homes. It's certainly repairs and elevations and all the things that go with it.
Sure.
But in a normal full year, they see probably 7,000. So we're nowhere near being fully staffed to be able to do what we need to do.
Right.
We seek out help from DCA in Trenton. They provide us with some assistance in that area, and we're moving along. But sometimes the public gets a little frustrated with the length of time that it takes. From what I've seen, they're doing a great job. But of course, if I was applying for a permit, I'd expect to walk in and put my check on the counter and walk out with a permit.
Yeah, right.
Rather than go through the review process.
Right, for sure. Now, your background?
I'm in excess of 40 years in the insurance and construction industries.
Excellent.
I got out of college as a teacher. That wasn't a way for me to make a living. But if you're trained to be a teacher, you're not trained to do a lot of other things. So it took a little bit of doing to find a niche, if you will. But I worked in the property insurance industry and of course related construction industries for better than 40 years.
That's great.
And it's been very helpful.
That's good. Now, in your position, if somebody wanted to actually get a hold of you from Toms River Township, how would they do that? What's your phone number?
The best way to reach me is to use my email address,
Okay.
which is T. Newman, N-E-W-M-A-N, 1, the number 1, at tomsrivertownship.com.
Okay.
Second best way is to leave a phone message for me, and that's the township phone number is 732-341-1000, and my extension is 8357.
Right.
Be aware that I don't answer the phone. As silly as that sounds, it's a call box, and that goes all to my email. But you can leave me a message. I get the message, and when the Township Council decided that they thought this was a good idea, the purpose was to extend the day for the residents to have contact. Let's face it, during the business day, they can go to Town Hall or contact Town Hall, and all of the officials that they might want to speak with are available. Come dinner time, Town Hall closes.
Right.
And that access goes with it. The idea, I work in the evening, and that way we extend the hour to 7:30, depending on where I am. And I occupy different locations in the storm-damaged areas on different evenings during the week, with the fond hope of getting as many residents to be able to come see me rather than try to juggle answers on the telephone.
Right.
Sometimes telephone information as compared to face-to-face is a little difficult.
That's true. That's great. I didn't realize you did all that. That's wonderful. It's great that, you know, that between yourself, the township, that they had the wherewithal to come up with such a great program and plan. That's good to be right there on the street where people need you.
Yeah, I spend 2 evenings a week over in Ortley Beach. We have an annex, the town hall has an annex over there, and I spend 2 evenings a week there, and I get to the Green Island section by staying at the Silverton Firehouse, and then the Toms River Senior Center. And one night a week I stay at Town Hall just in case somebody wants to come to Town Hall to visit.
Right. That's great. Geez, your family ever get to see you?
Well, it's a part-time deal, so I'm home in the morning.
Gotcha. That's great. That's good, though. That's really good. It makes sense. You know, a lot of folks do things, and they do keep them in the regular business hours, where most of us are working during the day. It is after hours that we really need to see somebody or talk to somebody. So that's great. That's great forethought on your behalf. I think that's wonderful. And then just, you know, before we close out here, some typical kinds of questions that you might get.
Many of the questions hover around the elevation issue. I have access to the FEMA flood maps, which everybody, by the way, has access to if they have access to a computer. And I can, by address, find out what their required height is. Now, if they don't have an elevation certificate, I can't determine whether they're at the height, but I can tell where they need to be. Another typical question has to do with zoning. The reconstruction permitting will let you build the same size house on the same footprint, even if you're in a non-conforming lot. Well, people will come to me and they say, well, I only want to make it a little longer.
Right.
And then trying to get people to understand that variation is very difficult.
Gotcha.
We have issues with what I'll call conflicts in what a permit should be and what the customer thinks it should be.
Gotcha.
And getting them to understand those requirements.
And I'm sure that happens in a lot of cases. Unfortunately, we are out of time. You've been a wonderful guest, giving us a lot of great information. So on behalf of SCAN, Trevor Newman, we'd like to thank you for being here.
Tom, thank you very much for your help.
Okay, great.